What's up, everybody? Welcome back to our Big League Show. This is a very special occasion and one that's near and dear to me. I'm really excited to have Brian Abraham, who, by my last accounting, is the Senior Director of Player Development with the Boston Red Sox. Do I have your title right, Brian?
You do.
Yeah.
Happy to be here, guys.
Awesome. I'm always, as always, joined by Danny Enriquez, my very talented co-host. And what's up, Danny? How you doing?
Feeling great, man. Ready to learn a little bit. Talk to Brian. We were going over his wiki page. He's being credited a home run derby, which apparently he didn't win. So we got to call in the fake news.
So Abe's, as I and everybody in the Red Sox organization that I was familiar with, I don't think anybody called you Brian. I think it's like Abe's is the nickname, and is that still the case?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
I think just my wife calls me Brian these days. So
gotcha.
yeah, I like Abe's.
We'll leave Brian to her then. But Abe's and I's story starts through the major league team, really, right? Like you were, when I first met you, were the bullpen catcher, but wore a million hats for the major league club. Is that right?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
it.
bullpen catcher. Yeah, first year with the Red Sox 13 was bullpen catcher 13, 14, but similar to a lot, I think support staff did a little bit of everything. Caught the bullpen through BP, advanced scouting, psychiatrist, whatever the team needed, I was kind of there for them.
Such an interesting segue into the role that you're in, right? Like your entry point into professional baseball was through bullpen catching at the major league levels. Am I understanding the narrative correct?
Yeah, I worked for the Blue Jays for 6 years, caught the bullpen through some BP, did a little bit of scouting, went to Major League Scout School. So kind of like learned a bunch of skills as I progressed throughout my time with Toronto. But the first 8 years of my professional career, I was in the Major League clubhouse, supporting the Major League staff, supporting the players. I was lucky enough to be able to handle some on-field responsibilities, obviously catching the bullpen, throwing batting practice. Got to wear a uniform every day, which was pretty cool. But also because of, I think, just the wantingness to learn and my wantingness to be more than just a bullpen catcher, learned the other aspects of baseball too: evaluation, information, the ability to connect that information to on-field play. So that was the early on in my career with Toronto, and then early on with the Red Sox.
So that role of the bullpen catcher is really interesting. More of you become a staff assistant, right? Like you're an additional extension of the major league staff, and you end up involved in a lot of processes. Like I know you were the advanced scouting process as well as like throwing batting practice. So therefore, you're in the field coordination component. You're part of the early work. You're not just sitting in the bullpen catching bullpens. You're doing a million other things. And I know that you have a lot of involvement with the advanced scouting process, which is I would inherit a version of the role that you left with the Boston Red Sox. That was my entry point to working with the major league club. So thanks for stepping out of the way to create an opportunity, first of all. And I also inherited the replay duties from you. So that has a special place in my heart because the replay guy never gets enough love. I don't think he's the most locked in and accountable to the manager, accountable to the whole staff. But it's just kind of slept on as a position. Yet you're most intensely watching the game, equal to the manager, equal to the bench coach. So you and I share that role, and I learned that from you. So when the replay system was in its infancy, I think you did the first year of it.
I did. I did the first year of it. I actually, funny enough, we won the World Series in 2013. So our major league staff went to the All-Star game in 14. And that was the first year of instant replay. So I got to do instant replay for the very first All-Star game in Minnesota, which was kind of cool. I think Derek Jeter led off the game, bang, bang play at first, his last season as a pro, and we didn't challenge it. And all the guys were giving me a hard time. Like, you should have challenged it. They definitely would have given him a hit. And I was like, well, he was out. I don't know what you want me to tell you guys. But, yeah, definitely early on, I think probably a lot of unknowns with the whole process and how things go. It's advanced so much now. I think just as a much better, more efficient way of doing it. I think different teams have different ways of kind of gaining an edge and what cameras they're looking at and views and when they're going to challenge, when they're not going to challenge. And it becomes a pretty vital part to a team's success pending when you're able to do it. I know Mike Brenly does it for us now, does an amazing job. But like you said, Adrian, I don't think, it gets probably too much blame and too much credit at times, but people only care when you get it wrong or right, not all the ones in between when you don't challenge or you do challenge it, it's an obvious one. So there's a lot to it, and I think it's probably a very much underappreciated part of today's game planning.
I'm biased, but I agree, and I also think it's what has calibrated me the best of anything else I've done in baseball, because I had to watch baseball from such a detailed pitch to pitch, like making sure the guy touches first, second, third. It's not only the bang, bang out or safe calls, it's all the in between as to whether you should or shouldn't challenge, and making that internal decision and having that dialogue with whoever picks up the phone. I was so lucky that it was Torey Lovello, and he was awesome through that process. I know you and I have a lot of love for Torey Lovello, and it's such a pressure-filled, intense moment, and everybody's on the other side of it thinking, why is this taking so long? And in your receipt, it's going by so quickly, and so I had to at least comment on it to start this conversation because you and I share that.
Oh yeah.
And then
happy I don't have to do that anymore, to be honest with you. It's, too much pressure.
Yeah. I also have respect for the throwing batting practice component, the throwing good batting practice, good enough for Jose Bautista to have you throw to him in the home run derby. What year was that?
2012, I believe it was. A long time ago now. Geez, it's ages ago, but yeah, pretty cool experience back in the day.
BP throwers are another segment that don't get enough credit, right? Like it's actually highly difficult to throw very good major league quality BP, enough to where major league caliber hitters like choose you to work with them, right? I watched Vic Rodriguez Sr. and Manny Martinez just be like elite level batting practice throwers and find a role for themselves through that and a relationship with the player. And so the fact that Jose would select you to be the pitcher in the home run derby, did you have any, how were your nerves going into that?
Oh, geez. I was terrified. He asked me and I didn't say yes right away. I was very nervous. My current wife, fiance at the time, convinced me to do it. You're never going to get an opportunity like this again. What's the worst thing that could happen? I said, well, I have a couple of thoughts of what the worst thing that could happen. I mean, not throw a strike, hit him. I mean, who knows? But, I think a ton of support from Jose and the Toronto coaching staff at the time. And we practiced beforehand. I remember we practiced beforehand in Chicago. And it would have been a big regret if I hadn't done it. I always feel like now in my career, if I can throw BP in front of 40,000+ people on that stage, then I can do anything. So what an incredible experience. Again, like Jose, still keep in contact some, but to me, the player and the batter matters so much there. If he believes in you, if he is keeping you calm and trusts you, I think that goes a long way. I remember him telling me, he's like, hey, I'm going to take a lot of pitches, which, Adrian, as you know, when a hitter takes pitches in BP, it's very stress inducing because you want to throw strikes. You want guys to swing the bat and hit the ball hard. But when he told me he was going to take pitches, when I didn't throw it exactly where he wanted, it made me feel a lot better. And he was lucky enough to put on a good show for the fans. We came in second place, lost to Prince Fielder, but definitely BP, underappreciated skill. Even nowadays, we use machines a lot for batting practice in the minor leagues just because it's consistent. You're going to throw strikes, you can throw a little bit harder. It's something I'm lucky enough to still be able to do. I have an 11-year-old son now. He has no idea how good his batting practices from his dad. So I make sure I remind him that, I throw to big leaguers and 11-year-olds better than anyone.
Shout out to the Major League BP throwers and all BP throwers because it's an underrated skill. And I only know this because my story with this is dark. I lost it. I came into spring with the Red Sox and they asked me, hey, can you throw batting practice? Played baseball my whole life. I had a pretty good arm. I get into spring and it goes well for about a month. You remember Brian LaHare? Remember that name?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's from Worcester, the same town I'm from.
I nicked Brian LaHare on the elbow in one round of major league batting practice. That was 10, 15 years ago. I've never been the same since. You know,
That'll do it for
it's
you.
just the reality. Um, so going, you mentioned the processes that you guys have implemented on the player development side of things, which is where you stand right now, right? And so it's you go from this major league staff focused position into a really leadership development position now with the Red Sox. But there was a trajectory into that, right? What was that trajectory? What was your first quote unquote office gig?
Yeah, I moved into the office as assistant farm director, assistant director of player development. I think really just getting an understanding of our minor league system, our processes, how we got players from point A to point B, whether they were drafted by us, whether they were signed internationally as amateurs, and watch their progress from the beginning of their careers, ultimately to hopefully be a big leaguer, and everything that comes into play with that, whether that be medical care, strength and conditioning, mental skills, nutrition. I think I realized the holistic nature of development of a young player. Where I think when you're in some other roles or other parts of the organization, you realize it takes a long time. But I don't know if you necessarily understand the complexities of a player starting out in pro ball, how long it takes, and then their progress to ultimately become a big leaguer. And there's a lot of ups and downs. Development, like we like to say, is never linear, but it takes a group of people that supports all our players, supports each other to get these players to fulfill their development opportunities and perform to their highest level. So that was the biggest part, learning the farm system, learning transactions, learning the rules of minor league baseball, major league baseball, dealing with staff members, overseeing staff members. I had, really had never done that, managing them, their responsibilities, and making sure that there was a guideline, an outline for not only them, but for our players so they can progress throughout the system. And that was the start of it. Lucky enough to progress and ultimately kind of be the boss of all that. But I think the biggest thing before I became farm director was just learning what I liked, what I disliked, what I felt like worked, what didn't work. Like you said, processes, systems, how to scale what we do to a larger group, and I think really finding what we value, what matters most for an organization, then really driving that home for all of our players and all of our coaches.
Abe, so you came from a college amateur background, right? You played at Holy Cross?
Yep. Yep.
So in terms of the ways players come to you, whether it's high school, domestic, international pro, maybe someone who's been in the minors for a while, high level college, low level college, all the different ways they get to you. Is there a program? I know it's not one size fits all, but just like an approach to each bucket of players you're getting?
Yeah, I think whenever we get a player in, we really want to educate them on what we value, what as an organization, whether they come in as a pitcher, position player, what drives our programming. And, for us, it could be velo on the pitching side. It could be bat speed on the hitting side, strength and conditioning, building strength, adding weight, being strong is pretty foundational for all players. So I think educating them on what we value is the most important thing. Every player is going to start at a different point, obviously. When a player comes into the organization, we obviously get to know who they are. And for our amateur players, for our drafted players, they come in, we have a week with them. We have a first year player camp and we educate them on the hitting side, the pitching side, the base running side, medical, strength, all that. For a pro player, maybe we acquire who's already been part of pro ball. It's more of a, here's how we have evaluated you from afar. Here's some goals that we have for you as you come into the organization. Here's how we're going to get you there. For an international player, it starts at the academy, very much education, very much driving foundational ideas of the organization. So these guys know when they come into the cage, when they go to the six pack on the mound, they very much are aware of what they're working on that particular day to reach their goals. And I think a lot of it comes down to education and being very transparent about what we value and what will allow these players to have success where they currently are. But the more important part is have sustainable success as they progress up through the levels in a big leaguer. It's great to be a good AA player. It's great to be a good rookie ball player, but the goal is to be a good big league player. And I think very much explaining as the why to why we are training in particular ways, or why we are asking guys to compete in certain areas to get to that point is the most important thing. So you're right. Everyone, it's not a one size fits all, but organizationally, we do have some pretty important core values and core philosophies that we're going to explain and educate our players on, so that they know there is a reason for everything that they do when they step on the field.
Yeah, I think what it seems to me from our perspective here, outside looking in, is the Red Sox seem extraordinarily aligned in terms of, from a top-down standpoint, in terms of the things and philosophies and things they believe in. And if they're not on any given item, that's the action item for that off season, or like continued alignment in terms of developmental philosophy, whether it be hitting, pitching. It feels, from my perspective, that's, you guys are always striving for that. And right now, and it's part of the reason I felt it relevant for us to talk right now, because to me, the Boston Red Sox are giving the impression that development to the big leagues, that these timelines are much shorter than what they actually are. You're seeing guys like Peyton Tole, you're seeing guys like Connolly Early, you're seeing even some of the international players are getting there quicker than what the traditional 5 to 6 year arc is. And if you're a major league general manager, that's really about as good as you can hope for, right? Getting players to be big league ready to help a team down the stretch. It's not a team that's out of it or not playing relevant baseball. Like, you need your guys, your rookies, to show up and impact the big league club. When you see things like Roman Anthony, and you see things even Ceddanne, Rafaela, I mean, I can go down this list for a while here in terms of young impact big leaguers that have passed through the player development system. And now it's twofold, right? Because I think you guys are aligned in terms of intake processes. So you have your amateur domestic intake, you have your international amateur intake, as well as some professional deals and professional, like pro scouting, minor league deals, things like that. But I think what's true right now is a good intake system going into a very good development system, delivering a major league ready product. And I think that I tip my hat to you guys, because it's, the external results are very good, but also knowing you a little bit, I know the internal processes are very good. So what I also want people to understand is that the Red Sox player development system is a beast. It is how many people are in player development, Brian?
Oh, geez. I mean, player development is pretty big. So,
Right.
130 plus staff members, medical strength, on-field coaches. It's big. It's the biggest department in baseball ops. So it's when I say holistic, it is holistic development. It's a little bit of everything.
Plus the players.
Plus the players, which are,
right.
200 plus easy, 250 or so.
Right. So the high level management of that, which is what you do from the position that you're in, is really, it's a beast of a job. And I know that it's a village that does this. Please say hi to Raquel and Eddie and everybody. But I just know that it's such a big team working on that, to also be in a moment where you're delivering impactful players to your major league roster when you're making a push into the postseason. And that, to me, is about as good as you can hope for. And I shot a message over to Devin Pearson and Paul Taboni about the stuff that they've been doing in their roles to deliver players that you could then develop at a high level. So I just wanted to give you guys your flowers. I think you guys are doing a lot of really good things. We try to assess baseball at a high level and beyond just what's happening at the major league level. But you guys have it both, right? You have young, developed players impacting the big leagues. So what do you think is going right? Right? Why are so many of these players showing up ready?
Yeah, good. I mean, great question. Appreciate all the kind words. I think you hit on some of it, quite frankly. You talked about alignment, and I think Brez came in here, and it starts with, again, organizational values, organizational beliefs, having everyone not only in player development, but the organization, understanding what we can improve upon with players. And luckily, the relationships between myself, Devin, Harrison, the acquisition group, in terms of acquiring players, what we can develop best from players that we acquire is really important. We're going to draft players that have a skill set that is really strong foundationally, but then what areas can we help improve on the PD side, on the development side? Same with when we acquire a player. Obviously we want to get the most talented players, but what can we help improve once they get into our programming, once they're with our coaching staff, and with our support staff. So I think that alignment goes a really long way. The communication, the transparency, the ability to be collaborative and work together is incredibly important. Luckily we have some really good people to work with, and we're friends on the professional side, but also on the personal side. I think that goes a long way. But I can't speak enough about the coaching staff and at least in the development side and in the programming we have, and really getting players to buy into the programming and having very clear goals for players and saying if you improve in these particular skills, this is going to allow you to have success at the highest level. And then being able to track that progress, right? Like I think the baseball world and sports in general, we're very data driven. We utilize information and tech and provide that to the players very openly. So, when we ask a player to do something, it's not just saying, hey, do this, we think you're going to get better. It's, hey, let's do this and track your progress over time. And if it's working, let's keep pushing it. Let's try to do some new things. If it's not working, let's make an adjustment. And it's very clear when a player is moving in the right direction, and it's very clear when players are not. And, it's on us to find the solutions to the problems when they are not going in the right direction, and the player to kind of work hand in hand in that. But again, I think it's alignment. I think it's transparency with each other, with the players, being very honest about how we evaluate, what we value, and what is going to allow these guys to have success. And then consistency, work ethic, the willingness to challenge the norms of maybe what has been done traditionally within baseball training and the baseball landscape, and saying, hey, like, we've done some really great things in this game, us, other organizations in baseball, but what can we do to improve? What can we do to challenge the norms? What can we do to maybe get a step ahead? What do we not know that we think we know that we can get better at? So I think the staff being innovative, creative, and challenging themselves to always be better, and understanding that there's going to be failure and struggles, and learning from those failures to improve, I think goes a really long way. And the players, the players very much appreciate it as well. And the same goes for them. Like, they're not going to be always, again, development is not linear. They're not going to always have success. We want those struggles. We want those challenges so they can learn and get better from them. So like you said, it takes a village. It takes a lot of willingness to challenge what we know and what we think we know, and push the needle to a point where we're willing to take risks. We're willing to do some things that maybe we're unsure of, but with the data behind it, with the information behind it, we're willing to push through and make things work. So really, really a credit to the players that we have, really a credit to the staff that we have. We brought in some really good leadership on the PD side with some new ideas, new thoughts, and have done an incredible job of helping with our programs on all sides of the baseball. And at the end of the day, it's the players, right? Like, you have to get the players to believe in what you're selling, and building that trust and building those relationships so they're bought in and want to improve. And we've been lucky enough to do it with a lot of really good ones. And like you said, Adrian, it's happened pretty quick, like quicker than I ever probably imagined with a lot of these guys. And to have them make an impact in Boston in a playoff race has been pretty fun to watch.
And I'm glad you're bringing it together this way, because I think when you put together a player development plan, there's so many different departments coming together. And that's why I go back to the high level coordination to then synthesize all these complex information, data streams, and subjective streams into a cohesive message that a player can absorb. So packaged in a way that not only is he going to absorb it, but he's going to have the buy-in to actually apply it and follow that plan. In today's day and age, players have things going on in the offseason that could go with your plan or contradict your plan. So you have to set up this plan that is holistic to your point, but also I would imagine nimble to all of these players going to their respective hometowns and working with different coaches, different PT coaches. So your plan has to be not only well thought out, but nimble enough to absorb what that player might have going on as well. Is that something you're experiencing? It feels like this era of whether it be drive line or all sorts of hitting labs, pitching labs, you're working in conjunction with them as well.
Yeah, I think our coaches and our coordinators, build relationships with staff members or players, coaches outside the organization. One of the things we've really tried to do over the past couple of years is have we've transitioned instructional league, the traditional instructional league that happens in the fall, to off-season training. We call it our off-season training programming, and it's a few weeks before they have a minor league dead period when you're unable to interact and work with players. And then we have another one pre-spring training as well. And we formally invite a group of players to come down in Fort Myers that's fully staffed. We provide housing, we provide meals, and really work with our players on a one-on-one basis and focus on strength, adding weight, on skill acquisition, whether it could be bat speed, could be velo training, and really put a focus on the off-season programming. And we've had amazing results. Connolly Early was a player who spent the last 3 off seasons there. Peyton Tolley spent all of last off season there. Christian Campbell, another player who spent a couple off seasons there. And there's the strides and the improvements they made have been significant. And I think, when you have a plan and you can provide that to a player and you have staff that care and that these players trust, it has allowed us to provide an environment in Fort Myers that gives these players an opportunity for development and growth. So that has been a huge adjustment to what we do in the off season. It's paid significant dividends to our player development, and it's to the point now where players are wanting to go down there. They're seeing the gains that are made. They're seeing the success that some of these guys are having, and we're getting asked to go down there. Obviously, it's hard to have every player down there for staffing purposes, but we've done a really good job of, again, providing a roadmap for these players in the off season. And, for those that are not in Fort Myers, like I said, Adrian, we're building relationships with people outside the organization. At the end of the day, we all want what's best for the player. And I think if you have that being front of mind, things will work out for the better.
Abe, I'm going to ask you a pretty broad question, so take it whichever way you want to go. But in terms of position players, let's just leave it there. What is maybe the straightforward thing to develop, the most straightforward thing? And what is the most challenging thing to develop?
Yeah, I think that the first thing I would say is just strength and weight, like bigger, stronger, faster. Like that's pretty basic, but Adrian's been lucky enough to be around big leaguers and professional athletes. Like you go down to the field, these guys aren't small. They are beasts. There's a reason why these guys can hit the ball over 450 feet. Like Aaron Judge is obviously an outlier, but look at that guy. He's an animal. If he was, 5'7", 150, he wouldn't be hitting the ball that far. I don't care how hard he swings the bat. So I think size and strength, that's a foundational piece of development. And to me, if you don't have that, there's going to be just some things you're unable to do. There are going to be improvements that you can make physically and performance wise, but there are going to be some limitations. So to me, especially for young athletes, that's number one. So if we have a player on a bat speed program, for example, like it is get in the weight room, add strength, add weight, and then work in our bat speed training that we have a program for. So like that's something that would be very much focused on. A little bit more difficult, I would say, would be something like swing decisions, understanding the strike zone, not necessarily swing and miss itself, but like swinging at the right pitches. I think like that's something that probably happens a lot. So within a player's development when they're younger, they don't even realize it. You go to a little league game and, dad, we talked about BP earlier, dad's throwing BPs like, hey, swing if it's close. It's like, do you really want to swing if it's close? Because that means that you're not really having an understanding of what the strike zone is. I would say swing at strikes and try to hit the ball hard if it's in the strike zone. And I think that better provides a development opportunity for those swing decisions moving forward. So it's just a really hard thing, I think, that we've realized to train. Can it be trained? Yes. It takes a little bit more. There's more challenges. There's, the training environments that are required for that require more intimate conversations and specific drills. And I don't think you see the gains that you maybe would from improving the player's bat speed so they can hit the ball a little bit further and a little bit harder. So I would say that is the kind of straightforward answer. Strength and size, bat speed being the kind of easier things to do, where, swing decisions being a little bit more difficult. But again, I think you can improve everything. It's just a matter of where you want to put, where do you want to put what balls, what bucket do you want to put the balls in, right? Like if you're going to put more emphasis on swing decisions, you definitely can improve that, but maybe it's going to take away a little bit from bat speed or bat to ball or ball flight. If you want to focus on bat speed, that's great, but it might take a little bit from something else. So I think for us, it's finding where the players' deficiencies are, is what is going to drive their value and success the most, and then putting a little bit more eggs in that basket than somewhere else.
Now I feel guilty because I'm the little league dad saying swing if it's close. The strike zones changed. It's hard to say swing at strikes.
No, I know. Hey, my son deals with that. Like he's like, oh, that was outside. I was like, well, the strike zone's the strike zone. And, you gotta be able. Adjustability is really important too. But we all kind of do that. But I think like as you get older, you want kids to swing at strikes, and hopefully the strike zones are a little bit more consistent as you get older. But I think it is something that probably, by accident, kids swing at everything because they're taught to do that. Whereas in reality, the reality is, most of our kids are not going to be big leaguers, so it's okay to swing at pitches so we can get through batting practice. But it is probably something that I would argue could be taught better at a younger age, so they improve upon it as they progress throughout their youth careers.
I've been smiling the whole time with you talking about swing decisions, because if you follow a big league at all, it comes up in every conversation. Because I think the tightest correlation between major league success right now and any other offensive stat is whatever a swing decision stat is. Usually the guys stacked at the top of the leaderboards are also very good in their swing decision making, right? Especially in advantage counts. When they get themselves into count leverage and swing decisions is so much of the pie of a quality major league hitter right now. Yet swing decisions, that's super holistic itself. There's vision involved. There's timing involved. There's some guys innately see the ball better than others and pick it up better than others and have a better understanding of where the edges of the zone are than some of the others. Some guys have come up in a swing at everything environment. I think coming through the Latin American ranks, swing decisions at an early age don't seem to be as prioritized as they need to be when you get into pro ball, right? Because it's not about just getting walks. It's about getting your pitches. What pitches can you leverage your swing and getting yourself into counts that allow for you to get off those swings on your happy zones, for example, and that a down and away pitch fastball in a 2-0 count that you got yourself into a good count in, swinging at that, even if it's strike, that's probably not a great swing decision for the count that you got yourself in, right? In order to look for something somewhere that you can leverage it a little easier. So it makes sense that you would point to that as not only very important, but also very difficult to make big gains in, because there's so many pieces connected to it. Yet, when we dissect the top of offensive major league performance, you're seeing a lot of really good swing decisions, right? And I think Roman Anthony feels like he's squarely a case of this, right? Like he into having just a really beautiful swing, and some really attractive offensive tools. He seems to be an elite swing decision maker. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, no, you are. It's such an incredibly complex thought, swing decisions. Like you said, young Latin American players, the strike zones are different. A walk rate might be inflated down to the DR because the umpires aren't as good, or the calls are inconsistent. A 2-0 swing at a strike on the outer half of a plate for a lefty and he grounds out to second base might be a bad swing decision, even though it was swung at a strike. So it's so incredibly complex. I think one of the things we talk about is hammering the hard. It's like hitting strikes hard. that I think encompasses a lot of what we're talking about here. It's like swing at the right pitches that you can hit hard, not just swing at strikes. It's I think a balance of the two. And it goes so much deeper. Like you said, it's vision, it's situation, it's count, it's the opposing pitcher too. If they have good pitches that they throw in the strike zone that they want you to make contact with weekly, like you don't want to swing at those pitches. So it's such an incredibly complex idea, which is why it's broken down even more so. It's swing and miss in the zone, it's breaking balls in the zone, it's whiff, it's hard contact, weak contact, balls in the air. There's so much that goes into it. But it's to Roman, back to the Roman point, like he does all those things incredibly well. He has a really good eye, really good approach, very patient, very good awareness, but also understands the pitches that he can drive and when to swing at those pitches and when he needs to let it eat. You can see him too. He'll swing and miss sometimes at a pitch that maybe he wants to drive, and that's okay, because I think the swing decision might be right. The outcome just wasn't right. So there's a lot of different things that come into play here, and he does an incredible job of balancing his understanding of the strike zone while also understanding the pitches that he can drive. And in a short amount of time, he's proven to be a pretty solid hitter in this game, and certainly for our team, someone who we definitely miss in our lineup on a daily basis.
It's kind of ridiculous to have a rookie come in and wedge himself into the middle of your lineup on a run. I think but kudos to you guys, man. That's from a hitting philosophy side of things. To me, he's all those things. He's the scouting of intaking the player. Yeah, you take that if you can. You grab those tools if you can. And then the development of delivering a rookie player that makes high-level swing decisions and have that play right away at the big league level. And before that, just trade value-wise, rising to the top prospect in baseball. Like, I think, not that you guys are in a position to want to trade him, but I think trade value is something I don't think we discussed enough, because at a certain point, Roman Anthony is close to about as valuable of an asset in baseball as you can have in your organization. If you wanted to acquire anything or anyone, he probably provides you a path to do that. Now, you don't do that in this case, but there are other players where you guys do access that, like Braden Montgomery to access Garrett Crochet to push you into a run and things like that. So major league product isn't the only output that a player development or scouting department can deliver. You can collect these assets and develop these assets that other teams want them, and you get a more major league now fix, right? So, which was accessed by your scouting and your player development processes. So I think it's awesome, and I'm excited to see Roman Anthony get back in this lineup because I think he's a big part of what you guys go. Another guy that I'm a little partial to because I watched the whole arc was Ceddanne Rafaela, right? Who is Roman Anthony gets selected in the second round. He's a little more of a known entity, but Ceddanne Rafaela has to navigate a $10,000 signing at the DSL to then work his way all the way to where we are now, where he's playing impact center field and shortstop at times and second for a playoff caliber team. What stands out about Rafaela's arc and journey? Because what stands out to me is what you said about strength, and that strength doesn't always come in a big package, in like an extra large frame. That doesn't always equal strong. There's ways to net out strength, even from let's call it a medium frame, and I think he's done that. He's very strong with his frame, but I'm wondering if anything stands out to you from his development arc.
Yeah, I think he always had the athleticism, the instincts. Like I remember being down in the DR and remember Jose Zapata, our field coordinator down there. Shoes, happy birthday, Shoes. Today's his birthday, actually.
Happy birthday, Shoes.
Just pointing him out and saying, this kid's he's wherever the ball is, this kid's there. He just has the instincts, and he was playing infield at that point, but just seemed to had a knack for where the ball was going to be hit or back up a throw or everything. And I think, like what you said, he has gotten to a point where he's strong and he hits the ball really hard and hits the ball far, but it doesn't happen all at once. It didn't happen just in one off season. It was a gradual improvement. He got stronger. He added more weight. He improved the smaller skills that he needed to improve upon. Was always a good defender. Obviously, moved him into the outfield for opportunity out there. Just became even better of a defender in the outfield. It's funny, like the swing decisions is something that has always been a focus of his. I think you can see when he's going well, he's swinging it right, swinging at strikes and impacting the ball in the heart of the zone because he's got the bat speed, he's got the pull side power, he's got the ability to impact the ball and do damage. So, one of the things I know our major league group has talked to him about this year is pulling the ball a bit more in the air, especially. That's where he does the most damage. That is definitely an organization philosophy. Pull side air is something we really, getting the ball out front is something that we value, not because that's the only way for impact, but because if you're playing with percentages, it's really hard to drive a ball out of the ballpark the other way. It happens. Some of the best hitters can do it, but Ceddanne Rafaela is not going oppo at Fenway Park too often. So for him to do the damage that he really needs to do, it's pull side over the monster off the wall. And when he's getting the ball out front, when he's swinging strikes, he does that pretty darn well. So it's definitely taken some time for him to be the hitter that we've seen at times. He's still a little bit, inconsistent, you could say. But when he's hot, there's not too many players all around that are better than he is because his defense does not struggle. That has been so fun to see. And credit to our international staff, which you might have been a part of. I'm not so sure. Finally, Don Rafaela. The kid's amazing. He always wants to get better. The drive, you see the passion. Like it's really cool to see. Obviously, our top prospects have the success, the first round picks, but someone like Ceddanne, you throw Brian Bayo into that mix as well. Some of these lower dollar signs that have just, quite frankly, like defied the odds. And now our multi-million dollar, I'll use the word asset, but the reality is just impactful players at the major league level that are going to help us win for a long time is so amazing to see. And that's why we do the job. That's why we do it. It's to take, this little kid out of Curacao and watch him grow and develop and become a guy that can change an organization for forever. Because of the work that he's put in and his willingness to challenge himself and push himself to always be the best version of himself, if not a better version of himself than even maybe we thought.
Yeah, I bring him up. Yes, I was part of that group, but to spotlight the fact that even the individual scouting efforts take a village that need to be corralled, organized, administrated, and ultimately executive decisions made on that, right? So all the credit really goes to Eddie Romero and his group, as well as Jose Zapata and his group, right? Because now it's scouting and development coming together to deliver a ready player at every level, whether it be A ball, double A, triple A. And what stands out to me about him is the high level development that needs to happen to turn a middle infielder that would play primarily second, third, because he wasn't the dude to play short at those on the teams that he came up with. So to come up primarily as a infielder, to then net out as an elite center fielder, and yet also pop back into the infield and provide elite defensive impact there. So what I'm seeing is a high-level defensive development plan that needs to integrate these two the most, maybe not difficult, but demanding shortstop and center field to be able to develop that and then impact the big league level at an elite level. That's a high-level development plan, in my opinion. How do you balance, like what does a development plan for Ceddanne Rafaela look like on the defensive side of the ball in order for him to sit where he sits day to day defensively, right? Like that's incredibly impressive to me. And first it goes to Ceddanne himself, right? As you said, like the player is really always deserves the lion's share of this. But I think the plan that goes with this either puts him in a position to be successful at it or makes it an uphill battle. And I think you guys have put him in a position to be successful.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging. I think having the goals outlined in front of him in both spaces is really important. Then defining his playing time as he progresses through the organization. You're going to play the first 3 days in the infield, the next 3 days in the outfield, and having that work be done consistently. I think for us, like being very aware of, again, whether it was his first step quickness was a main goal, which would improve his range, whether it was on the infield out conversion, getting to the baseball and actually getting it out. There are different things that lead to DRS, defensive run saves, which is something that is obviously our main indicator of a defensive success. And the good thing is about defense is if you work on some things, they kind of can work hand in hand in both the infield and the outfield. First step quickness is going to look a little bit different, but if you're working on strength and speed and agility, that's going to translate to both the infield and the outfield. And then just, I think, making sure that we get the reps. It's really easy to just say, good luck, go get them, take some ground balls, take some outfield fly balls. But I think the way we train, the competitive training environments that we have, putting these guys in spaces where they have to work really hard, really fast, challenge themselves at a high level, high speed, so that when the game happens, it's a little bit easier. I shouldn't say easier, but like it's a little bit more of a normal pace when the training is done at a high speed. We do a lot of infield drills where a player needs to field the ground ball and throw it to first base in an amount of time before a buzzer beeps. So they are very aware of the constraint from which they're throwing. Same thing for outfielders, getting the ball in the gap, throwing it to a cutoff man and making it out on a relay throw with the buzzer, knowing that there's a base runner running. So training these guys and training their bodies and their minds so that they're very aware that everything is done within a time constraint to ultimately get outs. So it's a balance of all those things. And again, I think strength goes back to a lot of these things. If you're bigger and stronger, you're going to be able to be faster and get to balls quicker. And again, Ceddanne has certainly made a huge impact with the way his body looks and the way his body feels. And that's helped him both in the infield and in the outfield.
Abe, thank you, Valley. You've been really generous with your time. I want to ask on the pitching side, similar to what I asked about the position player, but more so about something that you've learned. Like, so when you started this job, when you started in this world, maybe you thought, hey, this can't be developed as much. And then you've seen success stories with this particular skill or trait or part of the game. What's something that you say, now that I've had experience and seen these processes beginning to end, this can improve more than maybe I initially thought?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think everything, honestly, that's the easy answer. I think everything can probably get better for all these guys. But I would say, we very much believe in, it is a velocity driven game on the mound. And the reality is, like, even if you're throwing 97, 98, you could probably throw a little bit harder and it's probably not as good as 99, 100. So I would say, like, that is something, while it might seem kind of crazy on the outside, but pushing guys to throw harder is really, really important, and maintain that velo throughout an outing or a start. A guy throwing 95 at the start of the game is great, but if he's throwing 93 in the fourth inning, that's not that helpful. I think like Connor early is a really good example of this. He came in from UVA throwing 90 to 92. His first start in the big leagues, he hit 96.7 and was throwing 95 in the fifth inning of his start. Like, significant progress, significant improvement. And that has allowed his pitchability, his ability to mix pitches, change speeds, change locations, change his pitch sequence. It allows those things to be even more effective than they would have been if he was low 90s, had a low 90s fastball. So I would say velo to me is like, you can never throw hard enough. Again, I know that sounds a little bit over the top, but it is something that I think you can train the most and get better at. And there's some risk to it, certainly. There is, but the reality is, if you're not throwing a certain velocity these days in the big leagues, it's really hard to make an impact, to make a difference like a lot of these guys want to. There's not too many soft tossing pitchers these days. They're few and far between. You got to be able to throw hard. I think I don't know exactly what the average velocity is for a guy coming out of the bullpen, but it's 95 plus. I promise you that. And you got to train hard and you got to work hard to get there. And that landscape has changed significantly. Look at the bullpens that will do the best in the season and in the playoffs. Like, you watch a playoff game this October, everyone's gonna be pumping 95 plus, 96, 97 plus probably. And that's just the way their game has gone. Hitters are incredibly good. They can hit 97, 98, 99. It's amazing to me. these guys, especially if the fastball is fairly flat or doesn't have too much action. There's not too much uniqueness to it. But I think that's the biggest thing. Like velo isn't going to solve the problem, but it makes finding the solution a little bit easier and allows other pitches to play up or allows you to make a few more mistakes in the zone than maybe you would have otherwise.
Something that stands out to me about you guys, and going back to alignment, right? It feels like your intake processes are also absorbing players that are already between the buoys of acceptable fastballs movement, or like it's kind of like the intake is already like you can focus on the velo increase because their movement characteristics should already be above average plus whatever the case may be, and that's a testament to your scouting departments and believing in certain things and being connected to player development so that you can draft Peyton Tolle in 2024 at a lower velo range, right? But I would imagine the fastball characteristics were already pretty attractive under the hood, so to speak. So then you get to have a more precise developmental goal of, all right, let's get this guy. If this is effective movement wise at 92, 93, if we can get this to 96, 97, the movement's already pretty good. So that's where I think you can get that's where the magic happens, I think. And I think it's
Exactly.
these two things working hand in hand is why it's, why I think it's effective.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. I think we've done a really good job of collaborating with the amateur group, the acquisition group overall, and our PD staff, whether it be Justin Willard on the pitching side or Jason Ochard on the offensive side, like works hand in hand with the amateur group, and they get to evaluate as well the players that we might select. And it's not always perfect, but I think we're very aware of what we can develop, what we can train, what we can improve upon. I think Peyton's a great example. Unique characteristics, bit of a funky delivery, very unique fastball, had the size, had the strength, but he was missing the velo. And it was something that, based on a lot of different conversations and kind of a little bit of an understanding of who he was as a pitcher already, that we felt like we could improve upon. And then it takes the player to buy in and take the education, take the things that we're asking him and apply that into his work, not only in pregame, but on the mound in game, and really make it happen. And I'll tell you, it's worked incredibly fast. Very unique for someone like Peyton, but his ability to take information, to take the training, and push that into game settings has been phenomenal to watch. And it's not always that quick or that simple, but he's shown that it can be done in an expedited way, and certainly still has a long ways to go. But to see what he's been able to do this year has been really fun to watch.
And one added layer of complication that I think you guys deal with, and a few other organizations, the Yankees, the Dodgers, but what I remember was a high degree of effort and emphasis placed on media training, because you're going to be under a microscope in a way that some other markets get away with not having to be under that microscope. And so I'm wondering how much this factors in on the development side, like the preparing a player to stand in front of a media from, especially the Boston media, that's just going to be asked pointed questions and it's going to make you be accountable to it. Does that factor in a lot to the development plan?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we incorporate into spring training. We incorporate into our first year player program. Our media relations group here is phenomenal. And we're lucky to have affiliates that are fairly well known, where they have some media contingents. And I think this day and age with social media, podcasts, it's definitely a little bit more normal for players to speak and have interviews throughout the season. But again, we definitely prepare these guys for Boston. We definitely prepare them for the big market and the care of the fans here. And again, we're lucky to have some affiliates, Salem, Greenville, Portland, Worcester, that fans care very much. Especially at the upper levels. You go to Portland, Worcester in the middle of summer, they're packed house. It's a packed house. Tons of Red Sox fans, very well aware of who the players are, and they want them to have success. So anytime we can replicate what an environment might look like at the upper levels, the better. Certainly not going to be Fenway Park. It's cool to see. I saw Peyton and Connolly early a couple days ago, and just like their eyes wide open of Fenway and the first Yankees rivalry series that they were a part of. Same with Roman and Marcelo and Christian Campbell. There's not too many better places to play than Boston when you're winning. And there's nothing like winning in Boston, we like to say. And, the environment, the media, with that pressure, comes a lot of excitement, comes a lot of challenges and a chance to win. And, they say pressure builds diamonds. So it's pretty cool to be a part of something like that, for people to care as much as they do.
Aves, let me ask you a question, because being with Adrian, this is like a scouting / development question, but I know Adrian's always athletes, athletes, athletes. And the cliche for fans that we always hear is an athlete's going to be able to develop faster. They'll learn more, all that. But I've heard people in the majors say, I want someone who throws strikes. I want someone who can make swing decisions, make contact, and we'll make them more athletic. We'll get them stronger, twitchier, all that. Where do you fall on that?
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's both. I hope you're able to do both at the same time. Like, I think for us, the things that drive success long term are the things we're going to really push for our players to improve upon. You look at a guy like Christian Campbell. He had a short amount of time in the minor leagues. Was minor league player of the year, hit the ball really hard, played really good defense, and came to Boston and had a really good first month and struggled. I think it was a really good example of a guy having a ton of skills, a ton of talent, had a little bit more trouble adjusting to the big leagues than we would have liked and he would have liked. And now he's back in Worcester, I think, learning a lot of the things that you're talking about: better swing decisions, better consistency, better routine. It is really, really hard to make that jump so fast. I think sometimes we take it for granted with a lot of these kids. They're 18 to 23 years old. Roman Anthony's 22 years old or 21 years old, and what he's able to do, handle the everyday playing of a big leaguer, impact the baseball the way he does, play, plus defense in the outfield, and then do the little things as well. Good swing decisions, run the bases. So I think it's you want a balance. As a major league manager, you want someone who's reliable. That is, I think, what AC wants, and I think we're hoping we're developing our players to be reliable players. But we also want reliable players that are really good players. It's great to be reliable, but if you're not good, that's not that helpful when you're in a pennant race. So I think it's a balance of the two for sure. I do think there is still a lot of development that can happen in the big leagues, and our major league staff and our group, I think, does an amazing job of continuing to force these guys and push these guys to get better at the big league level, especially when they're younger. When you have someone like Peyton or Connor Early or Roman or Marcelo, like, these guys have made it to the big leagues fairly quick. So there's still development opportunities for them, and it has to be done in the big leagues so they continue to progress and improve and stay ahead of the curve versus just being the players that they are this year. You want them to get better as they progress throughout their time in the big leagues. And that comes with training, that comes with understanding of the competition, and I think, too, awareness of who they are, what they can improve upon, what they feel they can get better at, what levers they need to pull to push one way or take back another way. I think all those things come into play. So, yeah, I'd say it's a balance of the two. That's a bit of a unfair answer by me. I know I'm not choosing one, but I think you want a player that kind of can encompass everything. And sometimes you want the athlete, sometimes you want the guy who's going to run the bases well. But if I'll take, hopefully, that player that we're developing and we're teaching the minor league level is able to do both. Our AAA staff does an amazing job, and teaching these guys how to be good teammates, good baseball players, but also skillful is one of the hardest parts of player development. And we hope we're able to do that with every player we deal with, both on the pitching side and on the offensive side.
I think both is the right answer. Okay, well, to close this one out, you have a photograph that will forever be ingrained in my mind, and it's from when you were with the team in 2013, and you got series. It's a photo of you sitting on the laundry wheeled basket with your goggles on, and everybody pouring paint on you. And it stands out to me because every time I see it, I would think, man, that is the ultimate bucket list photo, right? You just won the World Series for your hometown, Boston Red Sox. And I just remember that visual so vividly every time I would see that photo. photo. So we're going to edit that photo into here after the fact. I'm going to have you send it to me. But you were also with the organization during 2018, right? So when you guys won in 2018, I was just an intern in 2013. In 2018, I felt I was more ingrained into the organization. If you had to choose between one of those two, which is the more memorable experience at this point?
I mean, it's pretty cool to have to choose between two World Series. I mean, that's something you never really dream about. Both special in their own way, certainly. 2013 was such an incredible year. I was in uniform, which is pretty cool. Feel definitely a little bit of a different part of the team, but we had the marathon bombings, a team that was not supposed to be really that good. The David Ortiz grand slam against Peralta in the ALCS, where we were down 1-0 and getting basically no hit. Just so many things that year that were incredible. And I'll say there's nothing like running onto the field celebrating a World Series or a win, and that those type of memories are really what you do these jobs for, right? Like I remember thinking like, wow, you win a World Series, that's great, and then what? But I know now the feeling when you win a World Series, that feeling is so good. Like that's why competitors want more. Like that's when you win, that feeling, that excitement, that all the work that you put in leads to that championship. There's a reason why people are so hungry to continue to build champions, continue to work hard to be a successful player or successful organization, because that feeling is so good. So they're both, I mean, again, very different. One being in the office, one being on the field with the group. I think 13 was just a little bit different when you're in there, the day-to-day grind, the ups and downs of the players, the personal relationships you have with them. Hard to beat that. Honestly, like probably best year of my entire life. So pretty cool. But
Yeah.
I'll take them both.
Yes, indeed. Well, you've been so gracious with your time, and I'm just so happy to be having this conversation with you. And I'm hoping that we could have, a follow up to this at some point. But I thought now was a good time to memorialize this, because I do think it's important to recognize when the processes you're working so hard for are yielding and netting at least some positive feedback. And I think that's happening in spades for you guys right now. And so I congratulate the whole organization. And please say hello to everybody over there, Raquel, Eddie, Croc, Harrison, Taboni, everybody. Please say my deepest hellos. And yeah, man, thanks for being on with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. Always a pleasure. Happy to hop on again, but appreciate the kind words. And, it's great to have some success, but I think the best organizations continue to push forward and want that to be, consistent and sustainable, right? Like that's our goal. And we hope it's not just this year. We hope it's for years to come. And very much appreciate being on here, guys. It was really fun talking.
Appreciate you.
All right, guys.